Welcome to episode 3 of North of Collapse. We are here today without a defined topic, but what is on my mind in the context of the threat, the existential threat that America poses to Canada and that the Maple MAGA fifth columnists pose to Canada is the development of an independent nuclear deterrent. Crumbs in my beard. This is something that's been spoken about in the past. It's seen as fringe, and it comes up once in a blue moon in policy discussions or op-eds. But, throughout the Cold War and the post-Cold War unipolar moment, so to speak, we've fallen under the supposed American security umbrella, the American nuclear umbrella. The notion that America will protect us from any type of threat that might require that type of deterrence. The challenge today being very much that the biggest threat to Canada is likely the United States of America. Since this incident with Peter Hegseth, the U.S. SecDef, and J.D. Vance literally adding a journalist to the signal chat about the anti-Houthi attacks in Yemen, I've been thinking about this more, and not only are we seeing overt signs of transactionalism, and mind you, the United States have every right in the world to be as transactional as they want. The thing is they have to pay the piper. In other words, if it degrades their alliances, which they might not see as important, they have to live with that. In that context, and in the context of this transactionalism, and the rampant hostility that Donald Trump has been demonstrating to Canada, combined with the fact that a lot of the MAGA and Maple MAGA people are buying this narrative, I believe that we have reached a point where Canada must strongly consider developing its own nuclear deterrent. As most of you may know, if you're good, solid Canadian patriots, we are one of the world's largest uranium producers, and we are the largest supplier of American uranium. At home, we use that to power our nuclear reactors, including the CANDU, which is a pretty damn decent nuclear reactor for all intents and purposes. Now, say what you want about nuclear energy. I don't really have an opinion on it. It's not my favorite thing, but I mean, whatever. I'm not educated enough vis-a-vis nuclear energy to make a determination, but I think the notion that it's harmful has been overhyped. But I'm not a fanboy either, so let's leave that there. Our reactors produce enough byproduct, and we produce enough uranium that we could enrich and we could develop a nuclear weapon. Now, I've done some research on this over the last couple of weeks and the last couple of months, and in terms of building the type of bomb that was used on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, what they call a gun bomb, just like kind of like a trigger pull, right? We could build one of those in less than 6 months. That's not what we need, but I mean, the science is known. Given the right material, I think that most nuclear engineers or PhDs, and someone could please correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, would be able to build this if given the proper infrastructure and the proper precursor materials. What we are actually talking about, though, is the creation of an independent nuclear deterrent. France has la force de frappe, which means the power of the hit, or the power to hit, if you're doing a literal translation. La force de frappe. It's a seaborne nuclear deterrent for the most part, although I think they have a triad. I'd have to look. It's been a while since I've looked this up. But they have their own independent nuclear deterrent, and basically developed under De Gaulle, as the Maple MAGA morons call him, and intended to protect France, largely because France, and we've kind of shat on them over the years, has never really trusted the U.S., which is not that idiotic if we think about it. So, okay. If we want to go France style, we can't just build trigger bombs, the ones that would take 6 months to build. We would need to build MIRVs, which means nuclear miniaturization, and we need to build more complex devices, for which we do have the precursor materials. And while we don't have the quote-unquote ICBMs, let alone the, how should I put this, the delivery mechanisms to get subs around, whether missiles around, whether it's subs or whatever, and that would be a long game, we do have a lot of territory, which would lead to the potential for missile silos. And missile silos in nuclear doctrine are always the targets of first strikes. In other words, if China or Russia was to target the United States and their nuclear weapons, one of the first things they'd go after would be the Minuteman silos that are throughout the Midwest, right? Vandenberg, Minnow, and all those air bases that are nuclear capable, to say the least. Now, regardless of this, Canada does need a threshold weapon to protect itself. Not to use. No one ever wants to use these things. But to protect ourselves from what America could do. And not just America, China, or any other country that was hostile to us. And the point is we joined the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, the NPT, which has been violated by Israel, Pakistan, India, North Korea, etc., because we were under the American nuclear umbrella. We can't count on that umbrella now under Donald Trump, and there's a strong argument to be made that we can never count on it again. Why would we ever trust the Americans again? Why? They could just turn on us after one electoral cycle. And that's assuming the country doesn't become a full-out autocracy within the next year or two, which some simulations that we've been running at my company, Prime Rogue Inc., suggest they will. A soft shift to autocracy, but a shift to autocracy nonetheless. At the end of the day, we can no longer trust the United States, and this isn't just a Trump thing. It's a cultural thing. It's a generational thing. America is gone, as we knew it. America is no longer our friend and will never be our friend again. We might have some kind of horrible transactional relationship with it in the future, but we can't count on it, nor should we, because as Canadians, we can stand up for ourselves. I mean, it's going to sound trite, but we had our own beach at Juneau, in spite of the fact that we were a colonial dependency, and what did? We kicked ass. And we can keep kicking ass, but when we look at the pussyfooting that the last 40 years of Canadian governments have done and the way they've gutted our national defense, there's a reason to be frickin' angry, okay? If we had not just, through Justin, through Harper, through everybody, Mulroney, Chrétien, those are the prime ministers of my lifetime. Pierre Elliott Trudeau, I think was, when I was an infant. But we gutted our military, and we let ourselves become dependent on the U.S., and now we're paying the piper. And, with Pierre Poilievre representing a member of the Maple MAGA fifth column, we're in a situation where there's an absolute need, if we elect Carney, for Carney to commit to developing military capacities. And he's doing that with the River-class destroyer, the potential talk of pulling out of the F-35, etc. But it's not enough. And this is not something that I'm standing hard on yet, although I'm heavily leaning towards it. Canada needs its own nuclear weapons. And without necessarily handling the question of delivery in relation to second strike capability, which would imply nuclear submarines, which the French might be willing to sell us at this point, but that we don't have. We just have diesel-electric chump submarines that catch on fire that we buy secondhand. We need to develop this capability. We can build the bomb. We have all the materials we need. We just need to build the delivery vehicles. That is to say, the missiles. And we need to bury these things up in the north, stand 24/7 watch so we can get a Trident or trilateral deterrence, a triad, that is to say, Earth, Air, and Sea. But as of right now, and please let me know what you think in the comments below, we can't depend on the United States. We don't yet have any type of European security alternative. And without that, a country with our resources, our power, our aspirations, our commitment to sovereignty needs nuclear weapons. There is no ands, ifs, or buts. To protect little Wilco the dog sleeping there, to protect your kids, to protect this country, this beautiful land, we need nukes. There ain't no two ways about it. And we need to put pressure on the liberal government, or whomever is elected, to build them. Now, I still believe that if Carney is elected, we are by default becoming the 51st state. And by that I mean a resource colony for the United States. But regardless, there is an absolute critical imperative that Canada begins developing autonomous defense forces by decoupling its economy and its military from the United States. And the two core elements of this, and we'll get into the next one tomorrow, is developing a domestic civil defense corps like we had during the Cold War, and developing our own nuclear weapons systems. I've been your host, Kevin, on episode 3 of North of Collapse, as we brief you on foreign affairs and geopolitics as we watch Pax Americana collapse. We will be back with another episode tomorrow. As always, it is a pleasure. Stay safe, Canada, and elbows up.